Today on Yeti at Large, a Gen X rock and roll top 10 list.
Hi, and welcome to Yeti at Large. This is a channel focused on making the most out of what you have, no matter where you're at. Thanks for tuning in and helping out.
So it seems like things have been pretty serious lately here at Yeti at Large between the election, the blizzard, and the repairs to Toothless. Now that we've got a little bit of downtime, I thought it'd be fun to do a rock and roll lyrics top 10 list from a Gen X perspective. Now this won't be a deep dive and a lot of interpretation like you'll find on Rock and Roller's Reaction or Professor of Rock. It's just going to be a skip across the top. I'll leave a link in the comments down below that you can get to my list with most of these songs on it, if not all of them, and do some research on your own, and most of all, just play the music. We're not going to do any clips of the music here because I want to completely avoid any copyright issues, but we'll have a little bit of fun. Number 10, The Call. The Walls Came Down. I don't think there are any Russians, and there ain't no Yanks. There's just corporate criminals playing with tanks. That's from 1983. I love this song because it really combined Old Testament biblical stories about the walls of Jericho and kind of modern politics. By this time in 1983, we were pretty sick of the Cold War and all the nonsense that surrounded it. We'd had all those Marines die in Beirut, and that really pissed us all off. So a song that kind of found that was great, especially by The Call. It was probably the most underrated band of the 80s. If you don't know Michael Bean and The Call, you should definitely research them. Number 9, Billy Joel, From a Modern Woman. Rock and roll just used to be for kicks, and nowadays it's politics. That's 1986. I really love this one. Billy Joel always kind of had a Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Paul McCartney writing vibe to him. But he did a lot of stuff that basically commented on it. He got into rock and roll because he wanted to have fun. He didn't want things to be too serious. And I really have always liked this song, and I really like that lyric. And if you don't know Billy Joel, boy, you should really do a deep dive. There's a lot of stuff in there that you'd love. Number 8, Cheap Trick, Surrender. Whatever happened to all this season's losers of the year? Every time I got to thinking, where'd they disappear? That's from 1978. Everybody knows this song because it's got the chorus, Mama's all right and Daddy's all right. They just seem a little weird. We really, really like this song because it talked a little bit about the culture gap between those boomers and the greatest generation and Gen Xers. You know, at this point, they called us latchkey kids, and we were just starting to see computers show up in classrooms. So it was a good bridge for us. Number 7, Pat Benatar, and I also mentioned Neil Giraldo, one of my favorite guitarists and another highly underrated musician. The combination of those two brought some of the 80s greatest rock and roll hits, and they were the number 2 video ever played on MTV, back when MTV played music videos. But this is from the song All Fired Up. Living with my eyes closed, going day to day. I never knew the difference. I never cared either way. That was from 1988. What I love about this one is I believe they were starting their family, and some of the lyrics in this song alluded to pending birth of a child. I could be wrong on that, so Pat and Neil, if I'm wrong, you can correct me down in the comments. But a lot of us, we were living day to day, living with our eyes closed. We were going through the motions a lot of time in the 80s. Teachers really didn't care a whole lot about the kids. They weren't watching us too close. It was up to you in the 80s to get it done and to take care of yourself. That was 7. This is number 6. Aerosmith, From Sweet Emotion. Some sweat hog mama with a face like a gent said my get up and go must have got up and went. That was 1975. I was 8 years old at the time. A little young then, but we discovered it later because what we loved about Aerosmith is they had an amazing renaissance with Run DMC, whom we all loved. And doing that collab that they did was one of the first crossovers to really bring hip hop and rock and roll together. A little bit later, Anthrax and Public Enemy did it too, and that was phenomenal as well. we all loved Run DMC right out of the gate. And so this older lyric, sweat hog mama with a face like a gent, said my get up and go must have got up and went. Not only is it lyrical and it rhymes, but it kind of talks about life being on the road and moving through relationships maybe way too fast. Number 5, Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker. I can't drive 55. So I signed my name on number 24. Hey, yeah, the judge said, boy, just one more. This was 1984. Now, I've been in public safety for the last 14 years, and I can tell you right now that number 24 is the signature line for the officer writing the ticket. If you look at an old-fashioned traffic ticket, every single box has a number on it, so everything is tabulated and indexed. Number 24 for a CHP ticket was where the officer signed. So when Sammy got pulled over and he signed his name on number 24, that gets you a little hot water with the court and the traffic cop at the time. 1984, he was driving a black Ferrari 308 GTB. The red version was from Magnum PI. But I love how he brought his mechanic out, put him in the video. They adjusted the camber and caster of the car and sent him down the road. Other great songs and honorable mentions from Sammy Hagar. Go way back in his catalog to some of his old pre-Van Halen stuff and look for a song called Fillmore Shuffle. Great tune. I wished you'd do it in concert. Sammy, Michael, Vic, Jason. And then later down post-Van Halen years, he did a song in an album called Marching to Mars. Really great song and great writing in that tune as well. Number 4, Judas Priest. K.K. Downing, Tipton, Rob Halford. They had a song, You've Got Another Thing Coming. And I love the line, out there's a fortune waiting to be had. You think I'll let it go? You're mad. You filled in the blanks in your mind. That's from 1982. British Steel had hit the shores as a heavy metal album and just set the die. We love, and being from Arizona, we claim Rob Halford as our own because he spends most of his time in the Phoenix area along with Alice Cooper and Fee Waybill from the Tubes. And if you don't know the Tubes, there's another one you should look up. But yeah, we were looking to make our place in the world and stake our mark. This was long before 50 Cent came along and said, get rich or die trying. But there was opportunity in the 80s and we were going to take advantage of it. I really love this one. Number 3, In Living Color, Cult of Personality. These guys came out of nowhere, it seemed like, on the radio, and man, could they rock. I saw them live at the Mesa Amphitheater, and it was one of the best shows I've ever been to. They're still touring, I believe, so you can catch them hopefully somewhere. If you haven't seen In Living Color in a live show, that's a bucket list item. The lyrics are, neon lights, Nobel Prize. When a mirror speaks, the reflection lies. And that's from 1988. The Cult of Personality talked a lot about massive world figures, political leaders, faith leaders, and how sometimes they get so big that the personality and just the existence of the individual become a cult-like following. He talked about everybody from Mussolini to Gandhi to Kennedy. But what we've talked about on this channel many times is make sure that these public figures, these leaders, these elected individuals, these corporate, make sure that you dismiss the cult of personality and just look at the actions, the behavior, the accomplishments. Margaret Thatcher once said, nobody cares what you say, they care what you do. And that's what this song was encouraging us, to bring people back down to earth. You know, the old saying, they put their pants on the same way. Great tune, great band. Number 9, Van Halen. No Gen X rock and roll list would be complete without any form of Van Halen. The Cradle Will Rock. And when a local kid gets down, they try to drum him out of town. That was from 1980. This was their sophomore album, I believe. And we're going to throw in a bonus lyric here, because right in the middle of the chorus, out of nowhere, Dave just pipes in, have you seen Junior's grades? Now, they're talking about a kid that kind of loses footing with the typical go to school, earn good grades, and be the popular kid and kind of winds up off track. They're talking about how the cradle will rock. It's a pretty sad story, actually, but there's a lesson to be learned in having a plan and taking care of yourself. Get your own, steady your own. That's what I love about that. And I love all formations of Van Halen. I don't care. Eddie Van Halen, DLR, S.M.E. My favorite, though, is that Michael Anthony. He was the constant the whole time. And since I'm trying to learn how to play bass, Michael Anthony, that's my boy. Our honorable mentions. Every top 10 list, before they give you number one, gives you a list of honorable mentions. Now, I'll tell you, it was tough to exclude Def Leppard from this list, and Redbone. John Waite and the Babies. Robert Palmer, not just Power Station, but Robert Palmer's solo career. He had a song called Looking for Clues. Didn't get a lot of airplay, but a great tune. And then Sir Paul McCartney. Now, you could go back to the Beatles. We all, Gen Xers, grew up listening to the Beatles. But Paul McCartney came all the way through the 80s, and he's still rocking today. So he was definitely hard to exclude from this top 10 list. And then I just got to tell you, I could do a handful of top 10 lists with the lyrics just from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, especially with Flea and Anthony. It's amazing. To me, the Red Hot Chili Peppers are like Dr. Seuss meets Van Halen and explodes. My favorite tune from the Peppers is Zephyr. It's a little bit later, early 2000s, but you ought to check it out. And then in the number one spot, because it was number one and the 10th one on the list, April Wine, I Like to Rock. Journey to the Stars, Rock and Roll Guitars, 1979. It's nonsense, it's feel-good rock and roll, and it's just dumb. It doesn't make any statements. Miles Goodwin, it was such a great tune. They even had a little sample and an homage to the Beatles in there, and it was phenomenal. It was rock and tune. These guys put on a great live show, and at the end of the day, rock and roll is just supposed to be fun. I've said many times that you are not a real rock and roll band if you don't at least have a song that says, I like to rock, I love rock and roll will never die, it's only rock and roll, we're a rock and roll band. You gotta have it in there somewhere, and if you look hard, you'll find it in just about every band. Well, that's our top 10 list from the Gen X rock and roll lyrics. Please blow up my comments and let me know what I missed and how you disagree or which ones you like. Click the link, it'll take you to my playlist with about 36 songs on there. I'm using them to learn how to play the guitar and the bass, more importantly. And let's have a little more fun on Yeti at Large. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next. And a lot more. Come here. Up. Agnes. You listen to rock and roll all day long with me. What's the problem? This is the only video I've done today. Can you give me just a few more minutes and then we'll do something fun? You want to say hi to everybody? They're right there.